Imagine a silent afternoon deep within the tangled forests of Virginia. Narrow dirt paths wind through a suffocating maze of oak and dense pine. There are no open fields here, no long lines of sight. There is only the woods of forest so thick that even artillery can barely find room to maneuver.
Roots, keep it steady! Almost there, one more push!
Now ask yourself, what happens when over 100,000 soldiers are thrust into this labyrinth of timber and shadow?
Straight ahead, enemy could be anywhere!
When armies cannot see each other until they are mere yards apart. When commands are sent through a dark canopy, only to be lost, delayed, or fatally misunderstood.
Copy that! Move it now!
This is the setting for one of the most audacious confrontations in the American Civil War, the Battle of Chancellorsville. May 1863. A battle where a vastly outnumbered army dared to split its forces in the face of an enemy twice its size.
Yes, sir. Keep the pace! Watch your step! Close up the ranks! Move!
It was a gamble that bordered on madness, yet it became a tactical masterpiece. Before we dive into the fray, take a moment. Imagine yourself standing on a dusty road leading to a small crossroads tavern nestled in the woods, known as Chancellorsville. Grab a coffee, because over the next few hours, we will follow the footsteps of men marching into the heart of this wilderness. To the north, a massive juggernaut is descending, fueled by the certainty of crushing its foe. To the south, a smaller force is preparing for one of the boldest decisions in the history of warfare.
Steady, man. Load your weapons. Forward to victory!
As these two powers collide in the forest known as the wilderness, neither knows that the coming hours will become one of the most dramatic chapters of the Civil War.
Forward march! Keep back!
By late April 1863, the Union Army, under the command of Major General Joseph Hooker, launched a fresh offensive into northern Virginia.
Issue orders to your units immediately. Yes, General. Understood.
Hooker commanded the Army of the Potomac, a force of approximately 130,000 men, after a string of previous Union failures. He believed he had finally engineered the perfect plan to annihilate the Confederate forces. His strategy was elegant and ruthless. While a significant portion of his army pinned the Confederates down at the town of Fredericksburg, Hooker's main strike force would march secretly to the west, crossing the Rappahannock and Rapidan rivers to appear suddenly behind the enemy lines. If executed correctly, the Confederates would be caught in a vice, a deadly pincer movement. On the opposite side, General Robert E. Lee held only 60,000 men of the Army of Northern Virginia. Lee was entrenched near Fredericksburg, watching the Rappahannock, expecting yet another direct assault from the Union, as had happened so many times before. But by the end of April, scout reports began to flood in.
General Lee, sir. Union forces across.
The Union was moving west. Columns of men, miles long, were crossing the rivers. Hooker had begun his great flanking maneuver. Between April 27th and 30th, several Union corps surged across the Rapidan at Germanna Ford and Elias Ford. Thousands of blue-coated soldiers marched across hastily constructed pontoon bridges. Artillery rattled over wooden planks.
Don't let it slip.
Massive supply wagons lumbered behind them. Once across, the Union Army plunged into the vast, suffocating forest called the Wilderness. It was a nightmare terrain for an army of this size. The brush was thick, the undergrowth low, and the paths were nothing more than narrow, winding trails. Visibility was often limited to a few dozen yards. Yet Hooker was confident. By April 30th, the Union Corps converged at a crossroads centered around a large brick tavern, Chancellorsville.
Hold the crossroads.
With nearly 80,000 troops already on the ground, Hooker stood before his maps and declared to his officers, "The enemy is in our trap." He believed Lee was caught between two fires, one at Fredericksburg and the other at Chancellorsville. Back in Fredericksburg, Lee faced a critical dilemma. The situation was dire. If he retreated west to face Hooker, the Union forces at Fredericksburg could cross the river and strike his rear. If he stayed put, Hooker would advance from the west and cut off the Confederate retreat entirely. Lee decided to do what few commanders would ever dare. He split his army in the face
We
of
will
a
flank
superior
them.
enemy,
Issue orders to Jackson and
leaving only 10,000 men under General Jubal Early to hold the lines at Fredericksburg. Lee took the remaining 40,000 and marched west to confront Hooker's main force. On April 30th, Confederate columns slipped away from Fredericksburg, moving rapidly through the woods toward Chancellorsville. The morning of May 1st, 1863, the Union Army began to push east out of Chancellorsville, intending to drive the Confederates out of the forest. Federal divisions advanced along the Orange Turnpike and the Orange Plank Road.
keep it moving, men!
Artillery was brought to the front. Infantry formed long lines between the trees. Simultaneously, Lee's men were pushing west on those very same roads.
Eyes front, press on!
The two armies were marching directly into one another. Around 1100 am, the lead units collided.
Fire! Fire! Return fire!
The first rifle volleys cracked through the woods. Clouds of white smoke quickly drifted between the trees. Regiments on both sides scrambled to deploy in the small clearings. The Confederates attacked.
Get!
The Union responded with sheets of lead.
Fire!
For several hours, the battle raged along the forest roads.
They're flanking us! Fall back!
Then, suddenly,
Sir, the roads
a
are
decision
filled
from
with
Hooker
Reds.
changed the entire
Cannot
course of the
advance.
day.
We must pull back to defensive lines.
Instead of continuing the offensive at a moment when his troops held the advantage, Hooker ordered his entire force to retreat and take up defensive positions around Chancellorsville.
Yes, sir! Moving back!
Stunned, the
Reloading,
Union
cover,
units
keep
pulled back
formation.
into the thick timber. They began digging trenches and felling trees to build breastworks, forming a U-shaped line around the Chancellorsville Tavern. Before them, Lee's army halted. Lee watched the Union defensive line take shape. He realized one thing with absolute clarity. The enemy was twice his size, but they had voluntarily locked themselves inside a dense, dark forest, and so Lee began to contemplate an even bolder plan.
We will divide our forces and strike his right flank. A bold plan, sir. We are with you.
A plan that would require him to split his army a second time right under the nose of the Union. That plan would begin the next morning, and it would become one of the most famous flanking maneuvers in the history of warfare.